For today's story, we cover a brand new lawsuit against Meghan Markle by her own half-sister, who has some dish to tell. Hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you enjoy this legal education content, and today will be the day I earn that subscription. For today's coverage, we're talking about Meghan Markle. Yes, the royal family is involved in this, and Meghan Markle has said some things. Some things about her half-sister, basically that she doesn't exist, among other things. And her half-sister is suing her for the various things that she has said, these false facts that amount to legal defamation. So this is a lawsuit that seeks civil remedies, monetary amount, and looks like it may be an expose that may help to somewhat humble the young Meghan Markle. Let's read about this. The plaintiff, who is the half-sister, who suffers from multiple sclerosis and is confined to a wheelchair, brings this action for defamation based on demonstrably false and malicious statements made by her half-sister to a worldwide audience, including roughly 50 million people in 17 countries who watched the Oprah Winfrey interview with the defendant, Meghan Markle, and her husband, Prince Harry of England. Defendant also published and disseminated false and malicious statements about the plaintiff in a New York Times best-selling book, Finding Freedom, and many newspapers and media outlets worldwide. Okay, so we are off to a really promising start here. Meghan Markle has said things about her sister, half-sister, basically that she doesn't exist, and she said it in many mediums. Many mediums to many millions of people. So when you're looking at defamation, one of the things you're looking at is damages. And how much are the damages? Well, you know, lots of people think you don't exist. Lots of people think that you did a lot of bad things, which you didn't do. So there's some harm there for sure. What are these specific things? I'm so glad you asked. On March the 7th of 2021, CBS aired a primetime special viewed by approximately 50 million people worldwide, featuring Oprah Winfrey interviewing Meghan and Prince Harry. During the interview, in a calculated effort to damage and discredit the plaintiff and her published autobiography, the defendant falsely and maliciously stated that she was an only child, that she last saw the plaintiff at least 19 years ago, and before that, 10 years before that, and plaintiff had only changed her surname to Markle in her early 50s when Meghan started dating Prince Harry. I'm sensing some tension between the half-sisters. Maybe they don't get along that well. Apparently, this wasn't good enough, though, because we have an entire chapter devoted to her in our book. That's kind of disturbing and hilarious. Defendant's defamatory email to her public relations representative was not only published globally, but formed the basis for a full chapter in the New York Times best-selling book, Finding Freedom, titled A Problem Like Samantha. Indeed, the first sentence of Chapter 12 despairingly states, the trouble began with Samantha Markle. Again, sensing some bad blood between the half-sisters. Why would she do this? Well, the plaintiff has some ideas of why this would be true, and here's what they think is the reason. Defendant, that would be Meghan, orchestrated the campaign to defame and destroy her half-sister and her father's reputation and credibility in order to preserve and promote a false rags-to-royalty narrative defendant have fabricated about her life in the royal family and worldwide media. I don't really know why you would need to do that. I mean, why do you need to necessarily be rags to riches? I don't know, but apparently she thinks it's important, but maybe not so much with the rags to riches. Let's read more. For example, in a very public letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and who had Nancy Pelosi on their bingo cards, and in appearance on television programs such as Oprah, Meghan falsely claimed that she essentially raised herself from virtual poverty. She was forced from age 13 to work in a series of low-paying jobs to make ends meet, that she worked to pay for her Northwestern college education. She drove an old car with malfunctioning doors and had to enter and exit via the trunk, that she had no siblings and virtually no contact with her family. This is my personal favorite detail by the way, that's upcoming, just because of how specific it is. My personal favorite, her family could only afford the $4.99 salad bar at Sizzlers. Just epic. Epic. G, her father refused to attend her wedding, and importantly, Plan's published autobiography was nothing more than a book of lies. You might be living in a web of lies, man, but you know, the sister's here to expose it as only sisters can. In truth, Thomas Markel, the father of both of them, was in fact highly successful. So, you know, maybe not so much with the poverty. He was a lighting director for 45 years, including General Hospital, Married with Children, and Facts of Life. He was recognized with 2 Emmy Awards and 13 Emmy nominations for his lighting. Sounds like he had a long, prosperous career. He was placed in the top 10 of household incomes. Yeah, maybe not so much with the poverty, although I guess in measurement to the royal family, maybe that's what we're going with. That's the poverty. But then basically we're all in poverty. So I don't know if that flies. It also notes here that Mr. Markel also paid for all defendants' college education, including tuition, rent, and living expenses, and even took out loans to cover the costs. So not so much with Miss Markel, Meghan Markle, paying her own way at college. No, not so much with that. We have more potentially false statements that the half-sister Samantha would like to tell you about, that Meghan Markle said about her, that aren't really true. We have a whole paragraph, several paragraphs of them. Here are some specific false statements Samantha says are not true. That Samantha dropped out of high school. She says this is false. In an attempt to discredit Samantha, Meghan implies Samantha is uneducated high school dropout. But the truth is, Samantha was seriously injured from a fall from a rope swing, resulting in paralysis on her left side and blindness in one eye at that time, and she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Not a lot of pity for the injured girl, I guess. Samantha missed school due to the paralysis, which kind of, makes sense. Samantha actually did complete high school and has earned 2 degrees, including master's degrees in mental health counseling and vocational rehabilitation counseling. So maybe not so much with the dropped out of high school. What other false facts have we suggested? Well, that Meghan saw Samantha only a handful of times, and Meghan had never been in a relationship with either Samantha or Tom. Samantha spent time with the defendant on a regular basis throughout their childhood and even lived in the same apartment house with the defendant for a period of time. Samantha picked up Meghan from school, took Meghan for ice cream and to the mall regularly. Maybe you didn't get her favorite flavor of ice cream. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe she wanted a different flavor of ice cream. I don't know. And spent many family holidays with defendant. Meghan's father was Meghan's primary caregiver, and Meghan and Samantha saw each other regularly, as half-sisters probably would do. Meghan visited Samantha in Virginia and attended her college graduation in 2008. They spoke by telephone and exchanged emails, and Meghan even called Samantha from the green room when Meghan was a briefcase model on the television show Deal or No Deal. How fun. This is an attempt by Meghan to create false impression that Meghan was essentially an only child with no contact with other family members, or as Meghan stated in Oprah, that she had no siblings. Ouch. Ouch. Meghan apparently wanted to convince the public that her family members knew nothing about her life and thus were not qualified to contradict the false narrative Meghan had painted about her life. Sounds like Meghan is trying to live a different life than maybe she really lived. And once again, why? I mean, she's already married into the royal family. Like, how much more glamorous does she need to make her life? Why does she need to lie to make herself seem even bigger than she is? This is my continuing question. Why does she need to lie to, puff herself up? She's already married into the royal family. I mean, that's a lot of puffing. How much more puffing do we need? How big is Meghan's ego that we need to make up lies because I'm a princess isn't good enough? Upon Meghan dating Harry, Samantha changed her last name back to Markle. Samantha's surname from birth is Markle, and Markle was always her maiden name. Samantha has been married twice, and while married, she used different names, but never stopped using her maiden name. I mean, it's not uncommon for people to use their maiden names when they're not married, so, probably, yeah, I would think. Samantha has lost all custody of 3 of her children. So basically calling her out for being a horrible mother. That's bad. This is false. Samantha never lost custody of any of her children. Well, that's a pretty big factual dispute, right? On the one hand, you lost custody of all your children. On the other hand, you lost custody of none of your children. You know, if you're going to make up lies about someone, maybe saying that their children were taken away from them with the implication they're bad parents is not the way to go. Samantha's credibility and reputation have been destroyed because a mother must be doing something very wrong to lose custody of her children. One would imagine, but it didn't happen. So we're just making her look really bad for no reason. Here are some specific defamatory statements that come from the book. Meghan has crossed paths with Samantha only twice since growing up. Apparently, no, not so much with that. There's only one picture of Samantha and Meghan. If there were more, Samantha would have sold them. I imagine, as she does say, that there are, in fact, many pictures of them together. And even if there is only one, man, geez, how much do we hate this half-sister? Samantha reached out to The Sun with her story about how snagging a royal had been Meghan's lifelong ambition. Samantha never contacted The Sun. Samantha was paid handsomely by The Sun. This is false. Samantha was not invited to Meghan's first wedding. This is false. Samantha was invited, but the wedding was in Jamaica. Samantha was confined to the wheelchair that we mentioned before due to the multiple sclerosis. She had a younger daughter who was in school, so for those reasons, she couldn't attend the wedding, not because she wasn't invited. Meghan asked her father to intervene with Samantha. Meghan never requested such an intervention. No such conversation occurred, and Samantha's father told her, "What you're doing is hurting your sister." No such conversation occurred. So again, we seem to be making very specific statements of fact against Samantha. These are things that happened or didn't, apparently. And we are just making up all kinds of things, like she doesn't exist, I'm an only child, we don't talk, what half-sister? Meghan is apparently too good for the crippled, paralyzed half-sister in the wheelchair with a multiple sclerosis. Too good for her. How special. Defendants have made these false and defamatory statements with actual malice and specific intent to destroy Plant's reputation and credibility and preserve and protect defendants' false narrative about her childhood and fairy tale life story. Fairytale's having a little bit of a hiccup here. As just one example of defendant's malice and hatred towards Plant, defendant demanded that her father, Thomas Markel Sr., terminate his relationship with plaintiff and disown her if she wished to continue having a relationship with the family. Wow. So apparently, Meghan went to her father and said, "Father, I want you to disown your other child, my half-sister. I want you to also pretend that she doesn't exist if you want to be related to me and the royalty and the glamour." Wow. That just takes a special kind of thing to go to your father and say, "Hey, have you thought about disowning my half-sister lately? It'd be convenient for me." Her ego knows no bounds. Let's read about these causes of action. Defamation. Yeah, I would think so. They made, published, disseminated statements with actual malice and actual knowledge the statements were false. Incidentally, I'm not really sure that we need actual malice, because actual malice is the standard for a public figure. Meghan is a public figure, but Samantha? Is Samantha a public figure? I mean, I don't think so. Unlike Meghan, who has done everything possible in this world to thrust herself into the limelight and very deliberately, very intentionally put herself into the public sphere, Samantha over here, not so much apparently. So I'm not sure we actually need the actual malice, because I'm not sure Samantha is a public person. I'm not sure she's a public figure. I don't know that we need to reach these heights. So simple negligence would probably be fine, because Samantha's probably not a public person. Mostly because her sister refuses to acknowledge her existence, incidentally, which is also kind of hilarious, since it might wind up biting Meghan in the ass, because it'll cause Samantha to have to prove less than she otherwise would. So Meghan's very own actions in disowning her existence make it easier for Samantha to sue her. How special. The statements are defamatory in that they prejudice, harmed, and injured reputation, exposed her to hatred, ridicule, or contempt in business, reputation, and occupation. That's a lot of things. We want actual damages in the form of lost employment, lost income from sales of autobiography, emotional and mental distress, including anxiety and fear to threaten, and violent emails she regularly receives and harmed her reputation. So, yes, it seems that Samantha here receives emails from like random people, just basically saying that she's a horrible person, horrible mother, or whatever else, right? They are sending these emails presumably because of the lies that Meghan appears to have been telling. This seems to be what's happening. So all these emails and letters and phone calls that she's getting from these random people, those all go to damages, the ongoing harassment by all these people that apparently all started with Meghan. So she can eat all of that and just pay out the nose. It's not like she has any problem with the money, but whatever. Defamation by implication. False statements disseminated in defendant's email and best-selling book, in the Oprah interview, and worldwide media were defamatory by implication because defendant intentionally and knowingly omitted facts or juxtaposed series of facts to imply defamatory connection between them. Among other things, defendant's false statements create defamatory implication that plaintiff has no relationship whatsoever with her sister Meghan, and that plaintiff has created a lucrative career selling false stories to tabloids and television programs when she knows nothing about defendant's childhood. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like Meghan has some splaining to do to justify a lot of these statements. There seems to be some potential issues here I'm spotting. The statements by implication in fact severely damage plaintiff by prejudice, harming and injuring her reputation, credibility, and exposing her to hatred, ridicule, or contempt in business, reputation, or occupation, which we learned about before from the emails from the random people. And we want a jury trial. How fun. So we might be having a jury decide whether or not Meghan is a lying liar, and if so, how much money she has to pay. The only thing that makes me truly sad, my friends, is that this is in federal court, which means no cameras in the courtroom. So sadly, we will be unable to stream the royal trial unless somehow this gets sent back to state court, which would be hilarious. But let's wrap this up. Thus, that brings us to the end of the case of Samantha Thus, that brings us to the end of the complaint in the case of Samantha Markel versus Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle is married to royalty. She is a princess. She has a princess-like life. It's pretty good. Apparently, however, this life is not good enough for Meghan, who feels the need to exaggerate her own life. Because, I don't know, reasons. Up to and including basically that her own half-sister doesn't exist, to the extent that apparently Meghan, at one point, told her father to disown her own sister Samantha because it was inconvenient. Wow. And Meghan Markle has said these things on the Oprah and in the books and in the newspapers to, millions upon millions of readers. Lots and lots of defamation. Lots and lots of specific statements. So, it could be an interesting case to watch as we go forward. I will take note that there is a personal jurisdiction issue in this case. So this case may not stay in Florida because of that reason. So if it gets dismissed for lack of personal jurisdiction, that's a possibility. But we will follow this case as it develops, whether it's in Florida or some other court. And until later, my friends, I hope all's well. Cheers and goodbye. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.